Hey there, live like your nail color gals. Do you need to be right to be happy, but you aren't happy? Like there are areas of your life that really bother you and you can't seem to get past them. Today's gal pal, Vickie Griffith, says that it's likely a story you started telling yourself long ago that you aren't aware of. It's based on an event that happened, but you added a lot of extra stuff about what it meant and have been proving it right ever since. It's an unconscious form of self sabotage that's been a speed bump to your happiness. Good news is that Vickie can help us identify those stories and how to take the first powerful step to turn it around. Before we dive in, have you taken my quiz to determine your nail color persona? You know, I always ask my guests to share their results before we dive into our conversation because it's a fun way to get to know them. All you have to do is go to livelikeyournailcolor.com/quiz. You then answer 3 quick questions and you get your results right then to discover your specific nail color persona. There are 5 of them, your built-in strengths, and how to tap into those strengths when chip happens. Again, go to livelikeyournailcolor.com/quiz. Now let's get talking with Vickie.
Tired of so much chip happening? Discouraged by so much downer news? Weary from chronic crisis? Don't let the chips keep you down. Welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast, where the tips of your fingers and toes are ready to inspire you to not give up and to keep creating the business, career, and life you want. In each episode, we flip the chip and let our fun nail color with that crazy fun name cheer us on to remember our strengths, embrace the power of choice, see life as an adventure, and know resilience is only a touch-up or change-up away. Get ready for a good time and a good laugh with your host, Mary Foley.
Hello again, Live Like Your Nail Color gals. Hey, is this the first time joining us? Well, welcome. We're happy to have you here. Hey, and since there are some new gals listening in each week, I think it's worth repeating that the right way to live like your nail color is the following. There's 3 things. 1, always have on polish on your fingers or your toes. It's just a non-negotiable. I mean, how can you truly live like your nail color when you don't have any color on? That's number 1. The second thing is to always make sure your nail color has a name that inspires you and cheers you on. And if it doesn't, well, give it a new name. Change it. And third, and this is really the last thing you need to keep in mind to, live like your nail color in the right way, is to notice your colored fingers or toes several times a day. Now, several times an hour is even better. You get bonus points for that. And yes, someone is counting. Of course, all this is bunk. These are indeed practical ways to use one of the simplest things ever, your nail color, to inspire you to not give up and to keep creating the business, career, or life you want, even if you're Naked Nelly, who doesn't put on any color at all. So you can take my nail color persona quiz to find out really what that means, but I digress. The point is that there's no right way to do this, to live like your nail color, which is really easy to understand for our nails. But it's very possible we trip ourselves up in other areas of our lives that have a greater impact. And that's why I invited my gal pal, Vickie Griffith, on today's episode. Vickie is internationally respected as the breakthrough catalyst, having helped thousands of individuals tap into their unique brilliance and highest potential in business and life. Her latest book is called You Can Be Right About Everything and Still Have Nothing. How to give up the need to be right and get what you want. And what I want right now is to tap into Vickie's insights. So, Vickie, welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
I'm hoping that you got my little sarcasm at the beginning.
I did.
I know not everybody does, but I mean, we've known each other for years now. But yeah, I was like, there's the right way to live like your nail color, So, Vickie, before the podcast, I asked you to take the quiz I created called What is Your Nail Color Persona? So now it's the big reveal. What is your personal nail color persona, and did it nail you?
Well, it was so funny to retake, because like you said, we've known each other for a long time. And I remember when I went to a I think it was a nail color bar or something. We actually had a bar and we actually all sat around.
That's right.
And
Big counter. Right.
Yeah, it was a big counter. And of course, there might have been a little alcoholic beverage. I'm not saying, but there may have been. And you looked at me and why aren't you getting your nails done? I'm like, because I don't wear nail polish. And you said, oh, you're a Naked Nelly. I'm like, okay, I guess I am. So that is who I am. I don't, occasionally I'll put some on my toes, occasionally, but rarely.
And see, and you're still a Naked Nelly after
I
all
am.
these
I
years.
still am.
Right. So, the definition of a Naked Nelly, or one of the essentials, I should say, is you're willing to be your true authentic self and show it to the world. Right. Because your fingers or toes are out there all the time, unless you're, living in a cold weather area and you got closed toes shoes. So you can't show it right then, at least your toenails. So you're still a Naked Nelly. So, my follow-up question to that is, what's your favorite go-to color? What is that? And does that meaning nail you? But of course, when you're naked, you don't have a color. All right. But here is the definition still, or the connotation, the description of someone who says, well, I have naked nails. And it says this: having naked nails reveals that you're not afraid to be your true authentic self and show it to the world. Here's the other part: you are modest, real, and sensible. Others find you soothing and supportive. Do you think that nailed you?
That nailed me.
The work that you do all the time, right?
Yep, it nailed me. People come up to me and they'll say, we'll be chatting for a little bit, and they're like, you're so calm to be around.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's fabulous. I'm grateful that I can be that for you. If you only knew what was going on inside of my head, because it's just chattering like crazy.
That's right.
Not about them, but about all the other stuff.
I don't have time to extrovert. It's like it's too much energy. What's going on in my ears? That's hilarious. And that is my experience with you all these years too. And your new book has such a provocative title. You're great at titles, but and this one just really made me go, huh? Let me read that again. So it has, of course, a title and a subtitle. And the title is "You Can Be Right About Everything and Still Have Nothing." So what do you mean by that?
Let me share how it came about. Sitting in my car with a girlfriend, we've been out shopping, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, she said to me, "He did it again." And I was kind of looking at her going, we were just having a lovely conversation. What just happened? What do you mean he did it again? And I walked into the laundry room and the washing machine was on cold water. There's only two of us that live in this house, and I didn't turn it to cold. So he must have turned it to cold, but he wouldn't admit it. And she was just aggravated and kept going on and on and on about how that was so upsetting because he wouldn't admit that he was wrong. About 2 hours after I took her home, I get a call saying I'm on my way to the hospital. I'm having a heart attack. And so I get to the hospital and we're chatting, and she's being admitted for overnight stay to visit with a cardiologist. And the next day, as I picked her up, I realized it was fine. There was nothing going on. It was stress. But I realized her need to be right about him being wrong was affecting their relationship. And not only that, but affecting her health. She was willing to die to be right. And then it occurred, well, what are we all in our belief systems trying to prove right every single day that are oh so wrong, but we're not willing to shift them or change them? And we might even be willing to die for them.
Wow. That's a very profound question.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Because your title, "Be Right About Everything and Still Have Nothing." I mean, if you don't have your health, you don't have your life. Yeah, that would definitely be nothing. So, all right. So let me ask you this. You've got your subtitle, "How to Give Up the Need to Be Right and Get What You Want." In your work with women especially, are you finding that we want the same things as we wanted before the pandemic party, or has it shifted?
It's really been fascinating to watch what is shifting and what we believed we wanted and what we want now. So I have seen a shift in what people are wanting. And yes, of course, it's still money. Everybody wants more money or save money. It's about time, so time freedom. it's about relationship, and it's about health. So those 4 things will never change. But what's changed is how we go about getting them.
Mm.
And as women, I think you would agree with this too, is that many women don't even really know what they want. They think they know what they want because someone else told them what they want. So after the pandemic, they're kind of like, wait a minute, that's not what I really ever wanted. And it might be a relationship change, or it might be a business change, or moving from one career to the other. And so I see that happening, that they are really truly stepping into what it is they want rather than what they thought they wanted.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, that's, they say, is one of the big reasons for the Great Resignation or the Great Resign, and just that people realizing, I don't want this job,
Right.
and or I'm done. I don't really want to work much at all. They might be at near retirement age, and they speed it up. Certainly, I've seen a lot of people geographically move.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in this place. Well, of course, if you don't want to be with that person, you probably, well, I don't want to live here with you in this house. And wow. So that's fascinating. It's profound. Asking the question, what do I want? And to your point, you said so many women just never really almost allowed themselves to answer that question for themselves.
Right. Right. Exactly. We're usually assume what somebody else wants for us. We're actually outright told, you need to go to this college, and you need to date these people, and you need to whatever, whatever that trajectory of the unspoken rule for the family is. Stay in your career, retire, die, that all that stuff goes on as well. And sometimes we make up stories, which is one of the things that tries to influence us to stay in a belief system that that's what we want. We make up stories that that's what we want.
Yeah.
And we're trying to appease ourselves and the other person. We're trying to hide or step away from or avoid that conversation within ourselves, because what we really want might not be something other people around us want for us, whether it's moving from a career to growing a business, or a person, or, like you said, an area. You want to move away from your family rather than, or move, in my case, I moved closer to my family. And it took a lot of shift and change because I decided that's what I wanted to do, even though I had spent a lot of money buying a lot of acreage in another state.
Wow.
But I had to do what was right for me and for us.
Well, and what you've just named, like you said, time, money, relationships, moving, those are like a lot of big buckets.
Mm-hmm.
Some individuals, it's not about as big a bucket, or it doesn't seem to at first. So here's just what I'm wondering here is that, but how do we know the difference between I'm just really good at adapting and I'm making adjustments, or I'm truly stuck? Because it might look like I'm doing fine, but truly I might actually be stuck, and I'm not sure to tell the difference. How can you tell the difference?
Well, stuck is usually a feeling. If you start drilling it down, I feel stuck. And a lot of people won't say that. They're not sure that that's what they're at. But stuck looks like irritability. Every little thing kind of sets you off to anger, right? So it's irritability, frustration, overwhelm, and then anger. Or it goes the other way around. Those three things happen: frustration, overwhelm, irritability. And then it goes the other direction where we feel sad and hopeless. And you just start operating out of routine day after day after day. There's no joy. There's no fun. There's no laughter. So I'm grateful for the people that are listening to this, because you do make it fun. You incorporate a part of their day to make them smile a little bit and be silly. And we've lost that since the pandemic. I'm not sure that we really had much of it before, but we've certainly lost it since. Even this week, I know people listen to this at many different times of the year, but at the week of this recording, conversations right now are, why is everyone so miserable? Why is everyone so dramatic? Why is everybody having such incredible emotional and mental concerns and worries and doubts? And what happened to kindness? And so there's an air of energy right now that we're trying to move through. And we can get stuck in it, because one, you might not know how, but you might not even realize you're there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're noticing your customers irritable, it might be a clue that you've been irritable too, even if you don't want to admit it. And most of us don't want to admit that, that we're irritable. And most of us don't want to, admit that we're blaming others, or that we're feeling ashamed of something, or we might be in that space of, well, this is really frustrating. It feels frustrating every single day. And how do we find joy and happiness and beauty in our day when it feels like everything's coming at us all at once? And I do have some ways to do that, which are very fun and fascinating.
Oh, we'll see. And I want to get into them because I know that in your book you have you have some of these simple ways. And I say simple, not necessarily always easy, but accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And before we dive into that, I just want to note, I appreciate what you said about, hey, listening to this podcast and the idea of trying to bring some fun is part of the reason of having this podcast, and having joy as a counter, to those negative feelings that you have outlined. That being said, I don't want any listener for any moment to think Mary doesn't ever have those moments of irritability and some frustration. And we just went through a really big move. And I did it for, in particular, for my aging parents, and wanted to be closer to them, similar to what you had said, that you had done. So we don't need a pandemic for that to happen necessarily, but it's still stressful, right? And so, and then on change. And just the other day, Bill says to me, "It's nice to see you smile again."
Aww.
Now, has he seen me smile at all in the last so many months? Yes, he has. But what I appreciate him saying that, because sometimes I think we need someone who lives with us, or a good friend who sees us often, or listens and hears us often, or talks to us often, to be able to be a bit of a mirror. Because sometimes we don't understand maybe how stuck or in a moment we are. So anyway, not everything's happy, happy, joy, joy, and merry, merry, land, land. Okay, but this is why I talk
to relieved to know that.
Yeah, that's right. But I want to talk.
Truly, I am. I think that we all need to. I'm Naked Nelly, right? So I'm authentic. And I think, and that's part of me too, is to show my authentic. It's not all Disney World, even though I live an hour away from it for me every day. It's still, there is still things going on for me that I'm moving through to become a better person. And that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
And my coffee pot died at 5 a.m. this morning, only after one cup of coffee.
What?
I know. So that
Where can you go at 5 a.m. to get a second cup? I mean,
I'm telling you. And that could have in the past thrown me for a tether for my whole day, right?
Wow, yeah.
But instead, my husband went to Walmart at 6 a.m. and bought a coffee pot. He's an angel, I have to say. However, right after that incident, and a whole bunch of water spilled on the floor. I mean, it was just like one crazy little thing after another. I stopped for a minute and I paused. I'm like, this is going to be an amazingly awesome day. And when I said that to myself, then I gave myself permission to change the output of my day and the input of my day. And it's been great ever since.
What are the things that you recommend for us to get out of this? I have to be right, so that I can actually just be more fulfilled.
If you identify one of the four basic, I call them archetypes of sabotage, you recognize which one of those are, then you can be kinder to yourself when it shows up again. And so I kind of make a little joke about, oh, here you are again. You're so adorable, but I can't play right now. Okay. And then that sabotage archetype kind of moves away. And I can do or be whatever it is that it's trying to get me to feel safe not doing, whether it's growing my business or saying something to someone I feel uncomfortable saying, whatever that might be. So first it's learning about one of those four archetypes of belief traps, if you want to, that's keeping you stuck. I'll go over them real quickly.
I would love to. Yeah. What are these archetypes? Because I bet we can start to identify in our own lives which ones we tend to go to.
The first one is not enough. So you feel flawed in some way, in that whatever you're doing is not enough. It sometimes comes from people telling you that when you were a child. All of these come from when you were a child. It comes from when a teacher says, oh, look at you, you got a, B plus instead of an A. What's going on with you? Or someone might outright say you're not smart enough. You'll never be smart enough. You'll never amount to anything. I hear that a lot from my clients. Or you're not doing enough. So there's a value. You feel like you're not valuable enough. And so you keep trying to prove your value. You're not worthy of whatever you receive. So that's the not enough. The other one is disloyal and abandoned. So there's an archetype that believes that if it does something out of the ordinary, it might be abandoned by those who love us. They might just walk away from us, or they actually have had a true abandonment in their life of some kind, or they're being disloyal to their family. So I had a client who was a CFO in one of the large cities here in Florida. Her dream was to own her own business, but that's a pretty prestigious job to be a CFO in a large city here in Florida. And her unspoken rule from her family, once we started dialing into what was going on, because she wanted this business, she really wanted to be an entrepreneur. She was an entrepreneur by spirit, and she really wanted her own business. But the unspoken rule from her family was, you go to school, you get a higher education, you get a good job, you stay there till you retire, and then you die. Basically, I mean, that wasn't said, but that's basically what they thought the trajectory of your life should be. And she's like, well, wait a minute, that's not what I want. And she came to me because she couldn't pick up the phone to make calls, even to her clients, even to her customers who had paid for the product that she was selling as a side hustle to build her business. She couldn't even pick up the phone and call them and say, how's it going? I'm like, well, this is kind of silly. And I didn't say that to her, but I'm thinking to myself, she calls very important people in the entire world all day long without announcing that she's calling, but yet she can't pick up the phone and call somebody. And so we're investigating, why is that? Well, we discovered it was this disloyal to the family tradition and rule. And once we were able to unpack that, then she's able to see that it raises its little head every now and then. And she's like, oh, there you are. Aren't you silly? This is so fun. Yeah, I'm doing a different path. She runs an over $1 million business now.
Wow.
Yeah, she left her job.
Well, I noticed you've said this twice now. You said, oh, aren't you cute? Oh, that's so silly.
Yeah.
Go. And it wasn't a critical, recognizing and then not criticizing that archetype that pulls up for you, but then also not giving it any importance.
Right. It's an acknowledgement in a fun way that, oh, here you are again. I see you. Rather than, like you said, criticizing or judging myself. I could easily say, oh, here it is again. Why am I keep playing with this? I should know better. All that kind of self-talk. But instead, I just acknowledge it as being silly and fun. And it's also to my betterment as well. It also betters me as I pay attention to this more. The third one is burden and responsibility. And this is where you feel that you are a burden. So you don't want to burden your family for any reason. So you stick to your job because you're bringing in the money and that's what they expect of you. Or too much responsibility, or you feel that you're going to get responsibility on your shoulders for taking something on, and you don't want to do that either. So that one comes up. I had a gym owner who was a brand new gym, and he was having panic attacks. So I was working with him to help him learn calming techniques. And he realized that because of his work schedule, anyone who's opened any business, we usually work 12 to 16 hours, especially brick and mortar. And they're done that when we had our restaurants. And so he was there 12, 16 hours. He had 3 kids under the age of 5. Mom was full-time, stay at home, taking care of the kids. And he noticed that because he was eating out more and because he wasn't working out as much, he was starting to put on some weight. Well, he knew he could slip in the exercise, but the preparing his food, he was afraid to ask his wife because he didn't want to be a burden since she had so much responsibility. Once we overcame his fear of asking, she was ecstatic to help him with his health and nutrition. So that's that burden piece. I'm going to be a burden if I ask. The fourth one I don't see a lot, and that's fear of standing out. So maybe an introvert or someone who's highly sensitive, which I am both, by the way. might have this. But this is also, it kind of combines with some of the other ones. This is also, let's talk about the starving artist. And I know that that's kind of a stereotype, but there is a community of people that you hang around that make around the same amount of money, and they might be struggling. And so you all have this connective community. And then all of a sudden you get a $10,000 job or a $20,000 job. And now that standing out that no one else is doing creates conflict in the relationships. And so they stay the same so they can stay in that community. And we all have that. My weight release clients, they have fat friends. Mm-hmm. And, we don't call them that, but that's, you have fat friends. I was fat at one point. I had fat friends. We would go out to get ice cream after we've had a giant meal, because ice cream melts between the cracks of all the food in your stomach after all. So that's the kind of support that you get from each other is, well, let's go get ice cream. It'll fix it, everything. Instead of friends who say, well, let's go for a walk.
So if we start to recognize the archetype that we tend to associate with, I'm sure every gal listening, myself included, is going like, I'm like that. No, not so much like that. Oh, but kind of like that, right? So what would you advise that we, of these four, kind of pick one that is that we find ourselves most identify with, and just say, now that you know that, just pay attention as it comes up, because you called it the archetypes of sabotage. Okay. Not the archetypes of superpower. Okay. Right. So yeah. I want to identify this so that I can not sabotage myself.
Exactly. That's a great question. So most of us have, I would say all of us have one that we play with on a fairly frequent basis. There is going to be one primary that keeps showing up over and over again. Because I'm an overachiever, I play with three of them. Will not have four, okay? That's not possible. And I don't mean that I play with them every day. All of a sudden, maybe burden will show up. I'm like, wasn't that fun and interesting? What, where did that come from? What can I do to shift that? But truthfully, my major one I deal with is not enough time, especially to get all the things done that I'm supposed to get done and I want to get done. Am I doing it well enough? That used to be one of my things, especially in the speaking arena and the book writing. My first book, it labored over it because it's like, well, is that the right sentence? Is that the right word? I mean, I was just freaking out about everything, to the point when I finally got to the end of it, it was like, just get this thing done. Right. And there's still misspellings in it. I'm like, that's great. I'm glad you found that. I left that there for you.
So these archetypes, how do they tie into being this idea of being right?
Well, what you're trying to do is keep proving that they're right. And we do it in ways that are misguided. So what we do is, so let's give an example of disloyal. For the client that I was having, her need to prove that was right was not picking up the phone. So it was something that was stopping her from doing that. And then she would create a story about it. And at that point, we didn't even know that it was about her family. The story would be, well, I don't want to call people after 6 p.m. and I don't want to disrupt their dinner, and I don't want to call too late because they might be getting ready for bed, or whatever the routine is. So she would start making up these stories. What's fascinating about that is, in my research, I discovered that 80% of the stories that we have in our heads, 80% of them are made up by our brain.
80%.
80% are made up. So 80% of any story is made up in your brain, because if there's something missing in the story, the brain will connect the dots for us.
Fill in the blank. That is always probably the brain going, got to complete this. Okay, fine. I'm going to put a blank in there.
Yeah. And
you're going to believe it's true. That's fine. But at least I can move on.
Right, exactly. And that's what this brain function is fast, quick, let's get it done and over with, and to still feel safe. That's what the brain does. Then what we do is we find solid reasons as to why that belief system, that archetype, is right. Well, the not enough must be right because I am a challenged speller. I have been since I was young. And there's a story around that. I was the second person to sat down at the spelling bee in 5th grade. So ever since then, I've always considered myself spelling challenged. Whether it's true or not.
This is fascinating because it makes me think of the words that I've heard from other people. Well, I've always ... right? Like you just said, I've always been spelling challenged. And then they'll harken back to a moment. That's the story. And that moment happened.
Sure.
But then they add so much attachment to that story. Therefore, I'll never be able to spell in my entire life well again. I mean,
right. And a decision is made.
Right.
And
not being done.
Right. And you keep validating it with these reasons. Well, it's because. And then go back to the story. So you can see how this is kind of all like a circle. It just keeps connecting back in. The other thing we do is we create what ifs. And what ifs in the positive way is very helpful for getting what you want. So what if I went ahead and I wrote that book anyway? Mm-hmm. What if we went on vacation and we thought we couldn't afford it? You know, that kind of questioning is positive because now you're going to start creating positive attributes to it. But these what ifs are the what ifs negative. What if I would have? What if I should have? Those type of judgments. And so you start creating those judgments on yourself about things you've done in the past or didn't do in the past. And it, again, goes back to let's validate it. We create a story around it. So horrific things that have happened to some of my clients when they were really, 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 really young. In the case where they weren't even big enough to be able to do anything about it, their what if is, what if I could have changed where I was, or what if I could have changed what I said, or what if I would have whatever, hit the person back. Well, chances are there's nothing you could have done about it because you were a little person, right? You were in control. Someone was in control of you physically. So those type of what ifs, switch them to the other type of what if. What if I today allow myself to feel safe? What if today I allow or receive hundreds of thousands of dollars? Because there's a whole big money block thing a lot of people have. What if, and then imagine what is it you want? What if I did have a career where someone really did appreciate what I did? And it was fun for me to go to work every day, whatever that looks like, remote or in an office or whatever. What if I did get the job that allowed me to stay home and work from home? Because a lot of people are going back into the office. So there's a lot of positive what ifs. If you change that to a positive what if, then it's going to help support you. The other one is like a quid pro quo, and we've heard that a lot during the pandemic. This book was actually written during that because I had a whole lot of time. So,
what if everything else was suspended so that I could write this book?
Yeah, I know. And it was because I had a vacation that got canceled. So there you have it.
Right.
So it's really kind of a bartering is what that is. I'll do this for you if you do that for me. So with our sabotages, that's kind of what we're doing. We're bartering with them, and that's never going to come to fruition what you want. It's always going to leave you behind with some kind of feeling of blame or shame or guilt. So that's one of the things we really need to stop doing is stop bartering with them and start making a decision instead. And I'm not talking, we've made a lot of big decisions last couple of years. Mm-hmm. You said you moved?
Yeah, I moved. I made decisions about my coaching and what that looked like because it wasn't going to fit in the conditions that we were in. Mm-hmm. I made decisions about my health as well, and my weekly and daily habits. I made decisions about really what media I was going to pay attention to, or I should say how much I was going to let it, but part of me, like I was going to be selective what came in. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a ton of change. Mm-hmm. And it's ongoing. That's mm-hmm. the thing. And I thought to myself, while this was happening, like a number of these changes were very positive, like the health ones in particular. I could have done those prior to the pandemic, or I could have started them. Like I didn't necessarily in one way need that external, crisis. At the same time, I didn't. So I'm sure I was telling myself some stories like
Mm-hmm.
I'll have time later, or it's not that much a big of a deal, or whatever. Fill in the blank.
Just today, or I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah. Yep. And that's kind of what we had been doing until everything stopped.
Yeah.
And then everything sped up 10 times. That's what it feels like, I think, for most people, is that we are on warp speed right now, whether time is trying to catch up, or we're trying to catch up, or businesses are trying, corporations are trying. I don't know what it is, but almost everyone will say it feels like time is at warp speed right now.
With all of this, is there anything we can do to more quickly, simply short circuit that whole downline that is about proving that the archetype is right, that doesn't serve us?
Well, firstly, just being aware of it is the first step. So that's huge and a gigantic step, and deserves a yay for you. You paid attention, you're aware of it, because a lot of people don't. They just keep their head in the sand. So you've already accomplished something just by noticing that you're in that archetype. And the second thing is to kind of do what I do, is to appreciate it. And you could do that through, oh, aren't you so cute? You're so silly. And not in a condescending way. It really is appreciation. Here you are again. I appreciate you for helping me acknowledge there's something about me I want to change. And there really is something you want to change about yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't be aware of it. The third thing you can do is there are many, many, many energetic techniques. Mary, you know me well enough to know I'm a hypnotherapist. I do emotional freedom technique and tapping. But truthfully, they all work, and they all work quickly. Truthfully, breathing and smiling. As you know, smiling creates dopamine in the brain. The brain loves dopamine hits. You had a radio show about that a long time ago.
That's
It
right.
hasn't changed.
I'm still trying to, yeah. And you know what? Dopamine doesn't last forever. So we have to keep bringing it up, and we have to keep experiencing it. So there you go.
There you go. Exactly. It is true. But smiling will do that. Even if you don't feel like it, it will do that. And then breathing deeply. Just be in the present moment, without judgment, without negativity. Could it be something that's deeper, kind of like some of the clients I spoke about? The zoo. It's interesting. We're talking about chaotic energy. Now I'm talking about zoos.
Not sure how that slipped in, but your brain was like, "This is a little bit cray cray."
This is all crazy. The gym owner, with being a burden, or
Right.
the CFO who want to be disloyal to a family. It takes sometimes someone else to help you move back the layers in a safe way, so that your mind and brain will be willing to change. And I've seen the shift change very, very quickly. Like overnight, literally. I actually had one client that I'm working with, and she was blocking her success. And before we got off the phone, she had an invitation for a speaking engagement. Seriously, before we got off the phone.
Wow.
And then the next day she got another one, and a week later she got another one. And so it can work immediately. Sometimes it takes a little while. I worked with a client for 11 and a half months. And that's when we finally discovered what was keeping her weight on, why she couldn't stick to a program. And it was just at that point, the brain felt safe enough to reveal it. And so sometimes we have to work a little bit and guide it in a safe way to be able to make the change safely.
I would think working with you and having someone other than myself to be, so therefore outside of myself, that I can start to tell these stories as to why. Because I am sure you're asked the questions to get like, well, why do you think that is true? Or what comes up for you? And I would tell these stories. And so, first of all, having to articulate the stories to someone else, we may not have realized what story we're really telling ourselves, and maybe all the details and all we attach to it. And then hearing it out loud, like, oh, but even if I don't get it at that point, I can imagine again, somebody outside myself going, well, what if the story was like this? Like just the suggestion of different ways to look at my own story be so powerful, because sometimes we run out of ideas. The cool thing is it can be recast.
It can. Yep, absolutely. And you're right. A lot of people do say when they start telling me their story, and they're like, where'd that come from? What they were telling themselves really didn't happen, but they attached it to the story.
Yeah. Wow. It's deep stuff. It's powerful stuff. And I've always known you to, well, laugh easily, but let's get down to the biz. Okay.
Right.
Let's like get down to what's happening here. The Ms. Authentic is coming out like, okay, not that you're a pushy person at all. I think that's actually one of your assets, is you make it very comfortable, getting back to that calm part, but you have the way of navigating people as a guide through this.
Thank you.
Now, you're welcome. I mean, I'm just saying it like it is, but I don't want you to take that as burden of responsibility, okay, that you have to help everyone all the time.
I am to help them all the time.
But I am going to give you a smaller burden right now, okay?
All right.
This is like live, it's authentic, it's being recorded, but here's the deal. If you could create a nail color name to inspire us to let go of being right and feeling more fulfilled, what would that name be?
Oh my gosh. You're such the expert with nail color names. I want to think of something joyful and vibrant, and something that somebody's going to grab a hold of life and just live every moment of. What would that name be?
Okay, so here's my suggestion.
Okay.
First, I'm going to talk about the color.
Okay.
And then I've got a name for you. I just thought of it. The color I'm going to suggest is a ocean blue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I see you right now on Zoom, and there is a lot of that blue on your background. You're wearing royal blue. It's in that, but blue is a calming color.
Mm-hmm.
Blue is also, we always associate it with the ocean, right? Because duh, that's the color. But the point is, it always soothing is the ocean. We seem to let go. We seem to relax. And so with that in mind, a blue color called Not Right Now.
Woo-hoo, I love it.
This is my job. Anyway, but not right now. Like that. No, that's not right. And now I'm not going to follow that train of thought.
I love it.
That was cute. That was fun. Like, I'm at the beach right now. Not right now. Right.
I love it.
And here's the thing. Anyone listening, any gal listening, you do not have to get a blue color. Okay. Mm-hmm. You can take whatever color you're wearing right now, or decide to pick another color and put it on and call it Not Right Now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's, to me, like the fun of it. Of course, that's the right way. Like your nail color. Full circle. Okay.
We're just saying.
We're just saying. Oh my gosh, this has been so enlightening, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us to have this conversation.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, let me just, I always ask my guests, if someone wants to reach out to you, someone wants to connect you, maybe they want to buy a copy of your book. Again, the title is You Can Be Right About Everything and Still Have Nothing. Subtitle, How to Give Up the Need to Be Right and Get What You Want. Because I know these archetypes are in there, and there's even more examples and some more tools that you can use individually. But what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Gosh, I'm everywhere. So it's not too hard to find me. You can find me on Facebook, Vickie Griffith Breakthrough. Probably the easiest thing to do if you just really want to talk to me direct is to email me at vickiegriffith.com.
Can we find that archetypes quiz there?
I would send that to you personally.
Oh, excellent. This is your reward, people. Yeah. Be listening to the end of the podcast going, oh, I'm going to get a link to the quiz. This has been so much fun. Back to the fun, shifting to that story. That's the story I want to hear, and that dopamine.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's been great. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And now for the after party I call Flip the Chip, where I take a few minutes to highlight something my gal pal shared that can help you flip a challenge or a difficulty that's holding you back into something more positive that helps you move forward. What I want to highlight today are Vickie's 4 archetypes of sabotage that we're often not aware of and that play a big part in staying stuck in some area of our lives. They are, number 1, not enough archetype. You never feel you have enough time, money, energy, compassion, or you fill in the blank. You struggle with feeling worthy. Number 2, disloyal or abandoned archetype. You have a real or imagined fear of loved ones leaving you because of your behavior or very character. Number 3, the burden of responsibility archetype. You feel the weight of so much responsibility that everything's on you. And also, you don't want to burden others with what's yours to take care of. And number 4, the fear of standing out archetype. You may be introverted, empathetic, or just don't want the attention because being different hasn't paid off. Which archetype do you relate to the most? Which one are you proving to yourself over and over again is right, it's the truth, and can't be changed? To flip the chip, Vickie said, just knowing your archetype is the first step. Then she said to appreciate it. When you notice this train of thought popping up in your head, thank it for showing up to give you an opportunity to make a change. She says, say something playful like, aren't you cute? But we're not playing right now. And then use an energy technique like tapping or breathing or simply smiling to shift yourself away from this negative thinking to a new, more positive state. And of course, you can tap into your nail color to cheer you on by putting on a soothing nail color and giving it the name, Not Right Now. So really, that every time you see your fingers or toes, you're reminded that your archetype is no longer right and that you've replaced it with what's really true and possible. You can make good choices to create the career, business, and life you want, one step, one nail color at a time. I look forward to being with you next time on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast. Ready to live and laugh more? Know a friend who could use some of that too? Then subscribe at livelikeyurnailcolor.com or your favorite podcast app and share this episode right now with the person who popped into your mind. Together, let's flip the chip to be stronger, smarter, and happier.